and are all ready to take off on another journey. And here the next speaker. And she is Alice Gomez. Alice Gomez is the founder of the Virtues Crew, a transformative coaching initiative that empowers parents to raise resilient, compassionate, and purpose-driven children. Drawing on her 13+ years experience in youth work, community and school-based programs, coupled with personal development coaching, Alice brings a unique blend of practical strategy and emotional insight to her work with families. Inspired by the internationally recognized Virtues Project, she supports parents in cultivating character strengths such as empathy, responsibility, and peacefulness at home. She seeks to help families shift from just surviving to deeply thriving, tapping into their shared humanity in the process. Alice will speak on building character for a peaceful future. Please join me in welcoming Alice today.
Try and manage the juggle here. Okay, thank you so much. Firstly, to the Monash Interfaith Gathering for inviting me to be part of this event today and creating this space for us to have these very meaningful and important reflections. I want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we're gathering on today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and especially acknowledge the Reconciliation Week that just concluded a couple of days ago, acknowledge the continuing connection to the land, waters and country that the Indigenous people across Australia hold. It's a real honour to share my thoughts with you today because I am super passionate about this topic, and I'm really very fortunate that both Shivali and Mojnan have done such a wonderful job of framing the ideas of the Virtues Project and character building and emotional intelligence. So I get to dive a little bit deeper into some of the practical strategies that the Virtues Project has put forward. Now normally, I would have to be really disciplined today because we normally explore the strategies across 12 hours worth of workshops. Today I have 45 minutes just to give you a little taste. So I'm really just going to focus on the first strategy in particular, which is speaking the language of virtues, and maybe touch on recognizing teachable moments, because I think they're really foundational to all of the other strategies. And I want you to walk away with something practical that you can do today as well. But first, before we dive too deep in, I want to get a bit of a sense of who's actually in the room today. So I'm going to ask you, if you are able, to, in a moment, stand up. If you say yes, answer yes to my question. And if your answer is no, just stay seated down. Now, if standing is challenging for you, you're welcome to raise your hands up in the air. So, that's fine. I want everyone to be able to participate. So let's find out who's in this space. So firstly, I want you to stand up if you are involved in education of children in any capacity, whether you're a teacher at a school or at early childhood, or whether you teach guitar on the weekends to someone. Can you please stand up if you're an educator? Could we please give this group a round of applause for their very noble efforts in teaching our next generation. Thank you. Now I want you to stand up if you are a parent or a grandparent or a family member or someone who has had any responsibility for caring for children in any capacity. Maybe you babysat your neighbour's kid for 2 hours one day, I don't know. Can you please stand up if you have had any responsibility to look after parents? Or you can raise your hands if standing is difficult. That's fine. Wonderful. Okay, so I think most people in the room. Can you stand up if you are a young person or a child? Hey, round of applause. Wonderful, thank you. All right, now I want you to stand or raise your arms if you've ever felt a little frustrated by the behavior of a child or a peer of yours, or someone, it could be a student or your own child. Just stand up. You've ever felt a little bit frustrated by that? Yeah. Right, stay standing, stay standing. Hands up if you've ever been a lot frustrated by a child or behaviours. Oh yeah, I'm feeling it. All right. Now I want you to, lastly, stand or raise your arms up high. Think back to your childhood and stand up if someone ever said something to you that as a child has stayed with you through to this day. Stand or raise your hands. For better or for worse. You know, someone said something to you as a child, and I remember this moment, this adult saying this thing to me. Most people. Thank you. What we say to kids sticks. And language can shape our identity. So, you know, if you manage to sit through all of that, you're either very lucky or very forgetful, one or the other. You know, we've all had these moments of frustration, or we all have these memories of things that have been said to us as a child. And so, this idea that language can shape us and sticks with us, that's what I'm here to sort of share about, because we can use our words, as has been said, not just to manage children, but also to empower them. And we can do this to raise the next peaceful generation, empower them to be champions of peace. And you've just reflected on the words that stuck with you from your childhood. I want you to think that what if every word you said to a child stuck with them for life? No pressure. But it is possible that anything or everything we say has the potential to stay with children for life. And this is why our words matter, and why I want to focus on the importance of speaking the language of peace and possibility. So I think there are some key challenges that we do face. Obviously, it doesn't come easy, and there are a number of reasons for that. I think firstly, negative language can really dominate. It dominates the media, all the gangs of violent youths and, you know, troublesome delinquents and that kind of narrative, I think, is very prominent. And we frequently in our own lives naturally default to correction, criticisms, labels like naughty or stubborn was an example Mojgan said that she used, instead of calling children to their potential. And you know, this is understandable because, I mean, this is how many of us have been raised. These are the same words that we were told when we were young as well. But we all need to be more intentional to try and redress the balance of the negative narratives that exist. And so we can replace the shame that would result from a negative label with self-understanding instead. And instead of feeling fear, we replace that with growth. I think disconnection is also another challenge that we have in this very fast-paced society and world. I want to thank, it was Mojgan for that meditation where we kind of all took a moment to kind of clear our thoughts. I don't know about you, but before that meditation I had 1,000 thoughts running through my head, and it just brought me to a place where I could be more present. And I think this is a really common thing in families where we've got a school and like 50 extracurricular activities after school, and we're juggling work, and we've got all the bills to pay and all these sorts of things. We have so many things going on, we don't take that pause to really connect with ourselves and with each other. And I think that makes it difficult to then be able to call on these positive things that we have inside. We can't build peaceful relationships if we're not using language to connect, but we're using it to disconnect. And then I think in Melbourne in particular, we have this struggle of this post-COVID decline in respect for language. I don't know how global this is, but I felt this personally here in Melbourne because I was a youth worker when we went through the whole peak of the COVID pandemic. And when schools had reopened after the periods of lockdown, my workplace was inundated with calls saying, what do we do with these students? They are speaking as though they're online. And if anyone's been online, you know how intense that world can be. Really what was happening was students were being like keyboard warriors, but face to face. Really blunt, not really thinking about other comments, things out of context. And schools were really struggling with this. And I think this was also, it It's natural for this to happen online, but it's sort of exacerbated by COVID because online is the only way we could connect with the outside world. So I acknowledge there are many challenges in implementing this idea of more positive or virtues-based language. But the Virtues Project offers a practical way of implementing some of these ideals. And so there were 5 strategies in total. And I'm going to focus on speak the language and recognise teachable moments. You have in your handouts, there is a little summary of the 5 strategies there, but I'll just very quickly explain what they are. So speaking the language of virtues is really about understanding how language shapes character. And recognising teachable moments is recognising the gifts of tests in particular, those challenging times, so that we can cultivate character in difficult times as well as in the easy times. Setting clear boundaries. The idea of setting clear boundaries is not necessarily a new one. A safe space is a space that is defined and has clear boundaries. But they can be based on respect and restorative justice rather than punishments. The 4th strategy of honouring the spirit is really about tapping into the dignity and the humanity of each child. So how can we create routines of reverence and presence and joy where we can connect with the inner humanity that we all have? And then the strategy of offering companioning. This is really like a way of truly listening to a person. So rather than when a challenge arises, trying to solve and quickly fix the problem, we do a bit more of an in-depth exploration of what's actually going on for the person. And how can we identify the virtues that will help us navigate and make choices going forward, peaceful choices. So, the words we choose really shape everything else, and they set the tone for how we teach our children, how we connect with them as teachers or parents, and how we build peace. So what I really want to say clearly is the words we use with children are not just managing behaviour, they're about shaping identity. And when we constantly say things like you're being rude or why are you so lazy, we're not just describing a moment, we're actually defining a child. So over time, that definition can become really internalised as truth. And so that's how shame begins, that's how disconnection grows, and that's how it can lead to a more or a less peaceful world or a more violent world in the more extreme case. But here's the beautiful thing. If words can wound, they can also heal. If language can shut someone down, it can also lift them up. So when we speak the language of virtues, we're actually doing something quite radical. You know, we're not just correcting, we're calling forth the best in someone else or in our children. We're reminding them of who they really are, their true identity, and this is especially important when they've forgotten it themselves. We need to remember for them when they forget. And this is the core of the Virtues Project. So it's not just about perfect parenting or perfect teaching, it's about speaking with intention and knowing that the way we speak to children becomes the way that they speak to themselves. And eventually the way they treat others as well and speak to others. So if we want to raise peaceful generations, we have to start with peaceful words. And I want to invite you all now. Mojgan shared a fantastic example earlier of how she had been using the word stubborn in her family. I want you to reflect on your childhood and think about a time when you had been called a label growing up. Now, I don't want to dive into the depth of trauma with this exercise. It might be a label, and this is not something to do with how you look. This is something about your character, maybe as a result of something that you've done or your behaviour. So I want you to think, and you can jot this down in your handouts. I think it's on page 4. There's a little box there where you can write what's going on the screen? How long has that been not there? Identify, is it page 6, is it? Page 6. Page 6. Think of a label or some labels that you have been called by a, thank you for fixing the screen, by a parent or a teacher or a significant adult in your life. Regards to your personality or character or behaviour. So what did they say, and think about how did it make you feel? I want you to jot these down and then just take 60 seconds, 30 seconds each to turn to the person next to you and identify what was that label that you remember being called and how did it make you feel? I'll give you 60 seconds just to chat. It may be naughty or stubborn or dramatic. It's my gosh. So friends, if I could bring your attention back, I suspect most of us have some recollection of an experience, or maybe it was a word that was used often in your home. But we can all understand the impact of this, how it stuck with us. Now I want you to imagine that instead of that kind of shameful label that you heard, what if that person had actually instead called you to a virtue? And how might that have shifted how you felt about yourself? So I've got some examples here. So I want you to think about what's a virtue that perhaps they could have called instead of just labeling you something else. So, for example, perhaps you were called clumsy, or you're dropping things all the time. Who knows? Maybe you felt guilty, for example. Instead of being called, oh, you're so clumsy, please be responsible. Does it feel different to you? For example, if you were called lazy, you never do anything, you're so lazy, it might make you feel like, oh, you're actually not capable of doing anything after a while. But what if you call on them? Be purposeful. What's your purpose right now in this moment? Perhaps you were called naughty. How would that make you feel? You're so naughty, and I hear this all the time. At kids' birthday parties and, all sorts of things, just play dates. I see it. You're so naughty, because the kid's doing something for the first time, but they never know whether it's naughty or not naughty. But they get told that they're naughty. After a while, how does that make you feel? It can make you feel really shameful. I'm a naughty person. I do naughty things. What if we call them? Be trustworthy, be reliable, be responsible. You could put any virtue in place of naughty. It makes you feel different. Oh, instead of like, I'm a naughty person, it's now, I have the potential to be something else. It frames it differently. It's a very small but significant shift in how we frame our language with children. So just take a moment for you to jot down for yourself what virtues perhaps would have been more helpful in that moment rather than the labels that you have been called. So our voice becomes their inner voice. So this concept is, simple, but it's quite radical. Stripping away that negative narrative and planting the seeds of self-worth, of humanity, of peace, rather than slapping on these very restrictive labels that can weigh us down. Now we have to develop this understanding that we have all of these qualities latent within. And we heard before, when people were reflecting on what virtues do you have, our instinct is to say, I don't have that virtue. But on reflection, we have it a little bit. But our instinct is to say it's not there. And if we believe it's not there, are we going to practice it? Are we going to do it more? No. So it's just such a small shift in how we think and the language that we tell ourselves and our kids. So it's like an iceberg. We talk about the mind. So it's like an iceberg. Sometimes you see just a little tip of it, but you don't know how much more potential there is under the surface to practice that virtue, to uncover. You need to really deeply believe this, that everyone has these latent qualities inside. Every child, every student has this potential within. And when you believe it, they will believe it. And our voice becomes their inner voice. Because our language doesn't describe reality, it creates reality. And we want to use it to help propel our children into a future of peace and happiness. You know, if we have the belief that they can be peaceful, that they can have unity and be cooperative, we have a responsibility to articulate this belief to them, not just hope that they figure it out. Or not just hope that they'll figure it out despite all the other things we do and say. We have to model it as well. So this was a really big reason as to why I actually moved into the space of working with parents and families, because my career was as a youth worker, and I was working directly with young people who had every reason to be angry with the world. Most of my time was spent working with migrant and refugee young people who had very little control over their lives. They didn't choose to come to Australia, they didn't choose to be born in a war-torn country. They had had a tough time. Yet, when they come here, they've got the weight of expectation to be model citizens, to excel because of all of the sacrifices that their families have made. And then from the community that's here, to earn their place to be here. This is a very heavy burden to wear. And I remember I would work with these amazing young people, and I would tell them that I thought they had the potential to be a leader. And they would look at me, what? I thought you have the potential to show these strengths, you've shown courage, you have love and kindness, all of the qualities on that list. And they would look at me like no one's ever told them this before. And I don't blame the families for that because they're dealing with a lot. I don't blame teachers for that. But I just felt like I shouldn't be the first person. You're at the age of 21 and no one's ever told you that you have potential to be something. Or you've got strengths that will help you achieve the goals that you want to achieve, whatever career it might be. I didn't want to be the first person to do that at the late age. I thought we need to work with the primary educators of children, which are parents initially, and then teachers obviously significantly as well. In very oversimplified terms, communicating in a more positive way with our children is key. So I want to take a moment to sort of counteract an argument that I often hear in parenting discourses when I say I run Empower Parenting. I often hear things like, oh, kids, we're too soft on them these days. We wrap them up in cotton wool and they need to learn how to be tough to survive in the real world. There's a defensiveness that comes up when phrases like gentle parenting, positive parenting, empowered parenting, conscious parenting, aware parenting, there's an idea that it's all about permissive parenting. And I want to make sure that everyone in this room understands that it is not about being permissive. And it is not about being soft. It's not about being weak. Using positive language is actually about strength. And it's about recognizing and calling for something higher in ourselves and in our children. And kids getting more exposure to negativity and toughness is really not something we need to be worried about. Just look at the world around you and it's there. They get it already. And if you're really worried about it, just put them on social media for 20 minutes and then they'll get a lifetime's worth of negativity. So as much as we want to have that control, it's not something we need to be concerned. We need to be concerned on redressing the balance of negative influences from everywhere else and all those deconstructive messages that kids receive. I want to show a couple of stats to sort of highlight this idea. So this is from a book by Catherine Bowles, Redirecting Children's Behaviour. She makes a claim about the number of positive or supportive comments that kids will hear a day and the number of negative ones. So a positive comment being things like praises or affirmations or encouragements. Can you shout out some numbers? How many positive things do you think a child will hear a day? Like affirmations or encouragements? Many? How many? Shout a number. 5? Yeah. 10? 10 positive. She guys are harsh. 32. I'm glad I'm telling you guys to be more positive to kids. How many positive comments are you telling your You guys can anticipate what's coming, right? How many negative or critical comments do you think a child might hear a day? 60? Double? 100? Yeah? Two? Oh, I want to be in your house. Let me give you an example of how easy it is for these negative comments to come out. Hurry up! I already told you 5 times to put your shoes on. You're always making us late. 1, 2, 3. In the space of 5 seconds. Yeah, it's easy, but, and you know, the rant would go on. You're always doing this. You're gonna make us late, and it's all your fault. We don't tend to go on such a rant with the positive stuff. We'll say one positive thing, and then that's kind of it. Just leave it hanging out there. You know? This is what this person claims, 432. Right? But you see how easy it is to go on a rant. If you rant on a child for 5 minutes, they've heard like 1,000 of them, right? Now, I will, in the interest of full disclosure, there are varying figures from different studies, right? There are different factors that influence this number. The socioeconomic factors, whether it's at home or in school. In school, there's a lot more disciplining that needs to happen to manage the group environment. So by nature of the environment, some of more of those negative corrective comments come out, because it has to manage the group. And then there's online platforms as well. These studies also tend to only capture what adults say to children. They're not capturing what children say to each other. So there's additional factors there as well. Now, I want to just take a moment to recognise neurodiversity here and divergence. A child with ADHD will hear 5 more negative comments than their peers each day. Now 5 doesn't sound like much. By the age of 12, that's 20,000 more negative or critical comments than their neurotypical peers. And that's not in total, that's in addition to the negative comments and critical things that we've heard. The prohibitions, the corrections and the criticisms. Don't do that. You're not allowed to do that. Stop doing that. So I think it's really important to just be aware of how easy it is to slip into this negative language and to address it with is there a question? Maybe you can go in the box? Yeah, but pop it in the box and we can discuss during the panel. I want to show a video now, and I hope the sound works because there's nothing like hearing it from kids. So I'll share this video and then get some thoughts.
Take 1.
How are you? Good. I'm so glad to see you. At your house, what do you hear your mom and dad saying most often?
Get off the couch! Come over and do the dishwasher! Oh, go clean your room. Oh, hurry up, hurry up. And you need to do your laundry. I'm not warning you again. Be quiet.
Why?
Because we're really loud. Who took this? Who ate that? Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that?
You're being distracted. Yeah, I need you.
Clean your room, do your chores. My dad says no. It's like all I hear.
Okay, and
My mom says like, hurry up, what have you done productive today?
To unload the dishwasher, to clean the table, to wash the dishes.
Remember to bring your lacrosse stuff to lacrosse practice. Clean up your desk. How did you find that? It was right there!
what's the nicest thing somebody's ever said to you?
I'm funny and my teacher says I have a good imagination. Someone said I have like a really nice personality and that I can be really respectful.
Your smile is contagious.
One of my friends said like you're the best person in the world.
Really? How did that make you feel?
Like somebody really cared about me.
Yeah.
My coach, I love him because even if we don't win or don't have a good game, he'll be like, you guys did good, we'll tell us what we did best and what we need to work on. I like hearing good things about myself and someone else.
Yeah. Has anybody ever said anything that hurt your feelings?
You're so obnoxious. No. All the time. I hear that maybe once a day. Those little comments stay with me all the time.
Someone at my school said if I wasn't good at like a certain sport we were doing for PE, it made me feel kind of sad that I should stop trying it.
This kid said I was a waste of life.
Oh, really?
it's just no one's a waste of life in my opinion.
That's right. What's the very favorite thing your mom and dad have said to you?
That they're proud of me.
Yeah.
They say you're gonna do great things one day. I love when my mom and dad like say I'm awesome and cool and like they love me.
I did hear like good job, well done, congratulations, stuff like that.
I think it's I love you. Really? I like that. My mom says I'm special sometimes.
Yeah.
And my dad says I'm a really hard worker.
Well, that must make you feel very valuable.
It does. She says like I'm beautiful, smart, pretty, and stuff.
Yeah.
Makes me feel nice and makes me feel more confident and positive.
My mom always tells me that like I'm the most determined, so it's always stuck with me. Like if I have a project, I just remember like I'm the most determined one. If I actually want to get this done, I can do it.
My dad tells me very frequently, and my mom tells me so much. I'm glad you are my son. I just love that.
It was spoken at the end, and when the kids talk about the things they really love to hear, what did you notice about, what are the things that your parents say the most to you at home? What did you notice at the beginning of the video? Yeah, a lot of negative things or commands or instructions. Seeing some smiles, at least I'm familiar to the young people in the front here. Yeah. I mean, I've said many things like that, and you can hear the tone with which it's said as well. I think that was really significant. But then what did they say about the things that they love to hear? Yeah, lots of very encouraging words and appreciation. Were there any comments that stood out for you in particular? Yeah?
Sometimes the words of encouragement came from outside family,
Yeah.
coaches, teachers, friends.
That's right, exactly. So, I mean, which is beautiful to know that there are people looking out for us and for our children other than just the parents or just the immediate teacher, absolutely. A comment that stood out for me was, there was a young lady who said, my mom's always telling me that I'm the most determined. Determination, a virtue. And this comment stood out to me because she said, because then, when I have a challenge like a project, I remember I'm the most determined, I can do this. So that particular comment actually not just makes her feel good, but she activates it in other circumstances and draws on it to get through and persist through other situations. A lot of the comments were nice. It's like, oh, I feel nice when they say they're proud of me. But it's hard to switch that into an action or behaviour that can propel you in other circumstances. So that really stood out for me, and I think it's just really important to remember how that balance of positive and negative and the quality of our words. Now, it's unrealistic to say that we're going to stop being negative at all. It's actually important. We need to have corrective language. And we obviously all feel emotions that sometimes come to the surface and we say things that maybe we're not always proud of. But it's not just helpful to just say, just be positive all the time. That's not what this is about. We can do two things though. We can increase the frequency and the quality of our positive language, and we can reduce the severity of our negative comments. And that's where speaking the language comes in, as we've been talking about. And I really like to think of speaking the language of the virtues as an extension of the emotional intelligence that Shivali was talking about at the start. We've seen this wave and movement of emotional awareness and intelligence come through lately, helping children to articulate how they feel. You start with happy and sad, and move on to anxious, and there's more complex words that we're able to use to express how we feel, so then we can move forward from there. But we also need to be able to articulate what are the qualities and strengths that you can identify in yourself and in people around you. It's a different type of empathy, helping us tap into our humanity. Now now it's going to play twice here. So you might be thinking, these words are too hard. I'm not going to tell my 4-year-old to be purposeful or detached. But if my son, he's 8 now, but when he was 3, he was saying really tricky dinosaur names like Pachycephalosaurus and Diplodocus and Carcharodontosaurus, he can say responsible. He can say considerate. He can use these words. So it is not something to be shy about. And you might think it's too idealistic for people to use this language in the everyday. It doesn't come naturally to people. Well, no, it's not natural at first for everyone. But when I was co-facilitating a workshop with some mums in the west of Melbourne, and there was a mum who had 5 kids. And she says, it's hectic all the time. I yell constantly. And this is what her children thought she was, just a yelling mum. But she was saying how after the first 1 or 2 sessions that we did, she was driving in the car and she had a close call with another car. And that other driver started abusing her and shouting at her. And she said, normally I would give them a piece of my mind and match it and go right back at them. She said, I remember I was practicing a couple of virtues that week that I had picked up. And she said she responded really calm. Her son was in the front seat with her. And she just said, I'm going to let it go. And her son just went, who are you? Didn't even recognize her. But it didn't come naturally to her at first. But it is something that can be natural for someone. You just start small. Start with a couple of virtues and you focus on them and it will be noticed. He kind of looked at her with wonder and awe and said, this is amazing. This program's really changing you. And the other one is that sometimes I hear that kids won't take it seriously. It doesn't mean anything. If you say it too often, it doesn't mean anything. You want to always say it, not just for the sake of saying it, but with meaning. And I think that it's not about kids not taking it seriously. It's that we need to take kids seriously. So I used to be the manager of youth leadership at this organisation that I worked for, the Centre for Multicultural Youth. And when you think leadership, you're possibly not thinking about a group of boys, teenagers on the verge of expulsion. You probably don't associate those two things. Always about to be expelled from school and leadership. But we came in, it wasn't the Virtues Project specifically, but I used these principles in my work, this strengths-based approach. And we worked with this group of boys to take a moment to pause and get them to tap into their humanity. Because as you can imagine, what labels have these boys been called throughout their schooling? Tell me, what do you think they were? Disruptive. Aggressive. Bad. Bullies. All of these things. So, are they bullies? Is that who we want them to be? Do we want them to be bad? Do we want them to be disruptive? So why do we tell them that that's what they are? I have a lot of experience with young people living into their labels because it feels easier to do. It's easy to meet someone's expectations once you know what they are. If you don't know the expectations, you can't meet them. So this school told us that this was their last shot. If this program didn't work, that the boys were out. And the first thing was to open their eyes to their common humanity and help them understand that they were more than those other labels that they'd been hearing all their lives. That we identified the strengths within them, they identified it in themselves, and they identified it in each other. The group included a couple of sort of rival alpha male boys. But then they found that they had a lot more in common than they had that was different. And they were given the opportunity to work together and actually pitch an idea to the school leadership, the principal and the assistant principals, etc., about how they could improve the school. Now that's not something you think a group on the boys on the verge of expulsion are going to do. But it changed their relationship with each other, with the staff. Normally they get called to the principal's office because they're about to be suspended. This time they were going to the staff room to present their ideas. So it's not that kids won't take it seriously, it's that we often underestimate how deeply they want to be seen and heard and guided in a meaningful way. So I want to quickly just share with you what you can do to phrase your more positive virtues-based language at home. So I want you to think now for an opportunity that maybe you've had this past week or, past month, a child or a friend that you've seen, a positive behaviour, and did you take the chance to acknowledge it? Or did you miss it and thought that was nice, but you didn't actually say it? And I charge you, after this session today, to actually go and actively give them a virtues acknowledgement. So this is one type of a teachable moment. Often teachable moments are about the hard times, when there's misbehaviour and we want to identify the virtue. We did a little bit of that in naming and shaming earlier. But with an acknowledgement, this can raise the consciousness of opportunities for positive interactions. The idea is that you catch people in the act of committing a virtue rather than committing a crime. Catch them in the act of committing a virtue. Don't wait until they commit a crime. So, when you do a virtues acknowledgement, you start your sentence, thank you for making me aware of the time so diligently. Thank you for diligently ringing the bell as timekeeper. So you have your phrase, you have your virtue in there, and then the really important part is that you have the evidence of how they showed that virtue. So you're not just like, oh, thanks for being courteous, but you need to know how were you courteous, especially with young children, while they're still understanding which behaviours are the virtues showing behaviours. So you're making these links in their brains, neural pathways for them to understand how the virtues translate into real-world actions and behaviours. What virtues they're doing to show peacefulness. Okay. So I want you to reflect. We're not out of time to do it in this moment, but I charge you all on the drive home to think about what positive behaviours you've observed and go back and do acknowledgement after the fact. Ideally, you do it in the moment. I'll flick through the last two, just a quick little. So as I mentioned, there's 5 strategies. I normally talk about it for 12 hours, so this has been really challenging to talk about it in 45 minutes. But we do run programs, and I know, so Mojga and I have some resources at the back, and you're welcome to come and have a chat with us about more information about the full program. But I wanted to share these couple of things because it's easy for me to say, oh, that's a great program, but I'm biased because I run the thing. So this is what someone said who's both a mum and a secondary teacher. She said, I absolutely recommend it. So the virtues-based approach is something that can help in all aspects of life and all relationships, family, work and friends. I now see my daughter in a different light. I had no idea how much I needed this. Another said, it speaks to the core of issues happening in homes and schools and society. It has so much potential to make positive change. It's a completely different way of communicating with not just kids, but everyone. And I think it will lead to more calmness and joy in the world around us. People who do the program tend to walk away with a lot more confidence in themselves because you realise you have all of these qualities inside, even if you didn't naturally think so. Practical communication tools, ways of actually implementing this. A deeper connection with themselves and with their children, and of course there's collaborative support as well. So obviously all parents and educators play a pivotal role in shaping peaceful generations. I want to firstly thank you for your commitment today to this topic by being here. And I'll leave you with this. Every word that we speak plants a seed. Let's choose the ones that grow peace, courage and compassion. Because every time we name a virtue, we're not just describing a moment, we're shaping a soul. And that's how we raise a peaceful generation. Thank you so much.